Hey there, this week I'm going to talk about the idea that creating art is a form of self-care and tell you a little bit about what brought me to that conclusion. I've been working on a Pixie this week, and I'm painting that on Grumbacher paper with Daniel Smith Watercolor Sticks, and I made a little time lapse of that, so I'll put that up so you can watch that while we talk rather than just looking at my face the whole time. I'm going to start off by briefly telling you a little bit about my life to give you an idea of where all this came from. And when I was young, and we're talking about in the 1970s and 1980s, art or doing art or doing anything creative was relegated to the hobby status. And what that meant was something you did in your spare time with spare money, but for the most part it would be considered a waste of time. Unless, of course, you're doing something that would be considered useful, like maybe making clothes or something you would want to sell, or making quilts that could be used in the home. And at this time, most people's idea of the word artist and what that meant would be something that they had seen on television or maybe in a movie, because I don't remember back then ever knowing anyone who would have called themselves an artist. And for most people that would mean someone who was either mentally unstable or was unrealistic or was just too lazy to make a living. And back then a creative person would not go around tooting their horn proclaiming to the world that they were an artist. That would not have been something you would want to have been aligned with once you were an adult. Creative people still continue to make their art or to do whatever creative pursuits interested them. You just didn't go around making a big deal out of it. But I personally never relegated my creative time or my creative pursuits to the hobby status. I've always made time to do whatever I wanted to as far as being creative went. If money was tight, I would either try to save money somewhere or I would figure out a way of making money so I could buy whatever art material I was interested in working with at the time. And when I think over my life, and I'm talking the big picture, just at a glance, I would say, well, everything was fine. There was never any real, big upsets, nothing that would just jump out at me and I'm thinking, oh, that was a horrible time in my life. I don't have anything like that when I just look things over. But when I really drill down and look at my life and the different things that have happened, at times my life was quite chaotic or haphazard. And just to give you an example, my husband and I were a young couple and we had 4 children. And at that time there was a recession. And the housing and the construction market completely collapsed. And my husband was in construction at the time. But I don't remember having any big problems with anxiety or depression. I just figured, well, something will happen. We'll figure it out as we go along. And luckily we did. But when I look things over, that does not stand out to me as a time in my life that was particularly bad. And I believe that my overall feeling of well-being was because I was a creative person. And not only that I made time to work on my creative projects. But back then, no one really questioned why I was working on something creative all the time. I made gifts, or I made clothes for my children, things we could use in the home. And so to other people, they didn't have any reason to question what I was doing. It just seemed to make sense. Now that I've gotten older, I'm nearly 60, and all my children are grown, and most of my family that I would be making gifts for has passed away or moved away. The same with friends. So there's no gifts for me to be making. Whatever I'm making is pretty much something I'm going to keep. But I continue to draw, paint, or quilt just like I always have. Even though I have a box of drawings over there, I have plenty of them framed, I have plenty of paintings, I have a closet full of quilts, but I have not slowed down any at all in my creative process. So I've gotten a lot of questions about that as to why I continue to draw pictures when I've got a bunch of them already drawn, I've got a box full, or how many paintings are you going to make? What are you going to do with those paintings? And why do I continue to create at the pace that I do? I mean, I generally find some time most every day to do a little something. I have at times worked 10 hours a day, and I would come home, do whatever needed to be done in the house and get everything shaped up in there, and then as soon as I had some free time, I would dive right into a drawing that was going to go in a box, more than likely, of 100 other drawings. But I was never deterred. And I probably saw something on the news, maybe read an article that talked about studies that have found that being creative, creating art, were all really good for your mental as well as your physical health. And I decided to really look into that. And I have found many studies that confirm that being creative, creating things, whether it be art or something else, have a huge impact on mental as well as physical health. And it can be anything creative. For me, it's generally painting or drawing, but it could be anything. And it allows you to process your emotions. It reduces depression and anxiety. It improves your immune system, increases problem-solving skills, and the list just goes on and on. It's a way to find some peace or peace of mind because your brain waves slow down, and there's a cascade of chemicals in the brain that give you a sense of pleasure and well-being. And it's very similar to the benefits of meditating. And the reason that someone would meditate would be for the benefit of feeling peace, calm, and happiness. I also found a study that said that even someone watching me painting this Pixie would receive many of the same benefits, even though they themselves are not the one doing the creating. With this newfound knowledge, I no longer feel any sense of like maybe guilt. That's not exactly the right word, but you know what I'm talking about. Like you're taking something away from somebody else or you're being selfish. But I no longer feel like I need to make excuses for why I'm creating, such as making gifts or something like that. I no longer need to apologize for the time that I have scheduled out for my creative time. I don't explain to anyone, unless it's someone who's interested, I don't explain to them why I take that time, because I have given myself permission to put that on my list of self-care activities. And I don't mean put it down near the bottom where, oh well, if I have time I'll get to that. No, I put that right up near the top. I have boldly put that on my schedule in a position of high priority, and I plan to keep it there. When someone asks me, well, can't you do that later? I could do that later, but I'm not going to. I'm going to do it right now. It means that much to me. And I am sure that it has made a huge difference in my outlook on life. Take a sliver of time for yourself to do whatever creative pursuits interest you. It is a part of your self-care. I'm going to go ahead and let this little time lapse run out, and then it shouldn't be but a few more minutes, and I'll come back with some final thoughts. Well, I hope this has helped you to be able to give yourself permission to take some time for your creative journey, to work on your creative pursuits, and not feel like that you're taking anything away from anybody, because it will give you peace of mind and fulfillment, especially in this chaotic world that we're living in nowadays, and you will have so much more to give back to the people you love. If you have found this is true for you, or even if you find that this is not true, feel free to leave me a comment. I would love to hear your thoughts. I'm going to take that little pixie when I finish the picture. I'm going to post that on Instagram if you're interested in seeing how it turned out when I was finished. And I think that's all for today. I'll leave you in peace and with the hope that your creative light will continue to shine bright. Bye for now.